What's going on, creators? Yeah, I just want to get on here and bring everybody back to now. Appreciate y'all being here and vibing with me for a bit. Today I'd like to continue just the conversation on mental diets. Hopefully, add something positive to your mental diet for today. The more I kind of do these, the more and apply it in my own life. The more I focus my attention on things that I find joyful, peaceful, that seeing the good in humanity, focusing attention on what I desire to see in the world, which is unity, oneness, connectivity. The more of an overall benefit that is just to my own state of consciousness. It's easy to drift back into the old mindset, the old man, as the Bible would describe, and start staring at what's going on in legacy media and these narratives that are completely just spinning out of control, that have no bearing on any type of truth or reality. It's like, how long are you going to just listen to liars habitually and give them any type of like authority over your consciousness? It becomes almost like laughable, but it's easy enough to fall back, even with addictions in a lot of these kind of insane things where it's like doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Comes in many different forms, one of which, which is more subtle, is, I believe, what your mental diet is, where sometimes you can get out of control maybe with your physical diet, the shit that you start eating. That can kind of spin your body out of control. I feel like your mindset is just as important. And when it comes to kind of moving in a more healing direction, a more coming together, putting these types of messages out is almost like mental medicine. It's important to kind of look at the stumbling blocks that are kind of preventing full realization right now, because it's only ever now, of joy, peace, feeling good, not feeling like you're suffering, not feeling like you're in a state of hell, but embracing more states of heaven, which is foreign to the old mind in a lot of ways. Almost like the only kind of satisfaction the old mind gets is almost in tormenting others, like putting vengeance on others, like comparing yourself to another person. Like, oh, I'm superior to that person, fuck that other person, I'm so much better, and there's just like kind of this weird kind of satisfaction that mind set kind of gets. Maybe somebody triggered you and then you're just lashing out in your mind all day, just like, oh, I should have said this to that person, and should have said that, and I hope that person gets what's coming to them, and hopefully I can witness it, and whatever, you're kind of telling yourself in that moment, where you're choosing to listen to that mind versus the Holy Spirit, the mind of peace, the mind of healing, the mind of connectedness, seeing yourself and kind of what you're seeing part of yourself in another person, seeing the divine in another person, seeing Jesus in another person is another way to say that, and actually experiencing love instead of just this fear and lashing out and anger and vengeance. But not to run from that either, because I know I've experienced that many times, where it's like you start to feel that kind of mindset creeping in, and immediately wanting to put it in check. It's like, oh, I just had like a vengeful thought, or just like maybe a fear. Most of it is a flavor of fear. So, anger is one of those emotions where it's easy to kind of get carried away with it, but realizing that a lot of it, you're being defensive, or you feel like there's a threat, that you're attacking something for your own safety because you don't feel safe, or you feel whatever way. A lot of it is like it's a fear-based response, even if at first it might not appear that way. It might just feel like, oh, that person's just an asshole, and without much self-reflection, but it becomes another thing when you start to almost be so reactive to these negative fear-based kind of feelings, where now that's becoming kind of an issue that's kind of something to address. And a lot of times you can realize that a lot of like your day-to-day going ons, it's like, how's your relationship with your spouse? Are you married? How's you and your wife communicating? Good, bad, indifferent, whatever's, how's your job acting, these situations playing out where you aren't being, reaching your full potential there. It's just, looking at every area of your life as being a reflection of your inner conversation, almost being like, the more you're able to steward, which I feel like is almost a better mindset than like this constant state of like desiring this future that never comes. Looking at your life with like more of a, well, this is just what I can handle at this particular moment. This is reflective of what my actual inner beliefs and assumptions are, consciously and unconsciously. And so instead of just sitting there trying to battle against the reflection, start to just, become more acceptant of where you're at, because in doing that, you start to accept yourself. And then, obviously you can grow. I mean, look at your consciousness as like a garden. It's like there's a seed, there's a period of growth, then there's a vegetative state, and then there's a flowering. There's a whole cycle that's going on. And if you're sitting there hating the journey of where you're going, getting there, getting a milestone isn't really going to do much, other than some temporary satisfaction followed by like, well, that wasn't the payday I imagined in my mind, because ultimately we're trying to just feel good and be happy and, feel safe and all these other things. And the old mind takes these events from the past that a lot of them I feel like were like maybe errors in thinking, where it's like, oh, I was like together with this person, and there was like this real feel good energy, and there's just, it was an awesome time, and I just wanted to do that again and again and again, because that was like the first time in years I actually have felt good around another person. And so then now all of a sudden, you're putting that feel goodness on the other person, instead of like, you're probably, both experience a lot of presence, in flow state, where you're not in your mind. You're able to a lot of times, share maybe some things that are going on that are just like going on within, and as you're bouncing things off of other people, there's a healing aspect of things, but ultimately ask God what to do, to feel good, and to be at peace, and to feel the fruits of the Spirit, and to express those more and more. But this is just something I'm kind of experiencing at the moment, where it's like, getting a lot of like resistance. I feel like even this resistance comes from like, oh, there's an old past thought, or belief or assumption or something that was like violence or like overtly aggressive, like wanting to damage somebody else, put vengeance on somebody else, all these kinds of things, from the old mind, and then like almost immediately putting it in check. But then, in that kind of, I'm a, I don't want to even look at it. I don't want to experience it. I don't want to do this. And, not appreciating the fact that all of these thoughts, are coming up to the surface to be healed. That's a different way of looking at us, having a similar event, or having some sort of vengeful thought, fear thought, some old mindset thought, and, where the maybe current understanding is, I need to, choose, to listen to God, or choose, what should I do about this, and constantly having a kind of a resistant attitude towards it, it's almost perpetuating, this, I don't want to look at this darkness that's inside my consciousness, and so what I've been doing recently, is, when those fear-based things, maybe vengeful thoughts, come up, because I noticed that, sometimes in arguing with like my wife at times, where it's just like, sometimes when you're maybe have something that's going on in your consciousness, like you feel like some resentment or something involving the other person, and it's like, I just really want to say that, and like maybe might like try to manipulate the other person by making them feel a certain way so that things play out differently. So instead of like doing that, I've realized this, like, sometimes, especially if you're in like the heat of anger, and just you're hurt by something they did, so it's like, oh, I want to hurt them back, to even the score type thing. It's a lot of times like when that actually manifests into a situation where that desire can express. Well, a lot of times once you say it and you actually see how that affected the other person, and it's like, well, that doesn't feel true anymore. Now that I've vocalized it, now that I've experienced, that's not actually who I am. It's like I feel bad about that, because that's not, not what I imagined it to be, and so like a lot of times, when you catch that, by the time it's actually physically manifested, it's been going on within for a while. There is like a time, quote unquote time. Time in itself, this construct is as an illusion, but there is a beginning, middle, and end to this kind of flow. But it works more like a circle than a line. It comes back to confront you in the present moment. And so by the time you've planted some of those weeds in your garden, it takes a a certain period of God's timing before it starts to become obvious in your garden, your consciousness garden, I guess. But in doing that, you can kind of nip that a lot faster before the weed is this tall. I mean, you can start to address that inwardly as it first arises in thought. And even when it first arises in thought, to realize that it's coming from a past belief, a past assumption, a past way of thinking that putting vengeance on another person, or putting like, I want to hurt this other person or manipulate this other person so they're not threatening my state of being. Look at it and don't shy away from it. Let that imagining express, and instead of resisting that energy of it, what's the worst that this mind can think, about this situation. It's like, I've had something recently come up, maybe it's a little bit personal, but, it involves like a family member who just, is on some level not really capable at this particular moment of, like, taking care of themselves, and, yeah, somebody thought it was a good idea to give them a booster shot of this fucking COVID shit. Not listening, and this is how this played out for me. It's like, I have made it very, very clear how I feel about this shit to everybody that is in my personal life. Abundantly clear, and it's been, and it's not like, oh well, all of a sudden, the COVID shit came out, and now I'm just like, oh, the news isn't real. As this has been going on for decades, and it's like, so as far as I'm concerned, it's like, okay, you used to call me crazy, you used to want to, dismiss and whatever, and now I've made this fucking very clear, and now, get a booster, and now all of a sudden they're having they refuse to see the connection, where it's like, oh, they got a booster and now he's sick, and it's like, oh, they got some, he's like got COVID. It's like, okay, you literally just got this random shit injected into the body. Now there's a fucking effect, and it pisses me off. It puts me in like a weird state where it's not like I'm worried about their, are they going to recover from this shit? It's like, why would you even do that? To begin with, and so there's like a lot of anger at the situation, at the family members that thought that was a smart thing to do, and just feeling a lot of dark energy about it. But it's like, do I want to kill the person, that thought that was a good idea? No. But, it's like, do I want to scream at them and yell at them and, like, tell them how I feel about it? Maybe. But, like, before any of that type of shit can manifest, it's like, let's explore that dark energy. And this is, we're labeling it as dark, but, it's something that's going on. And so a lot of it has to do, why did I feel this kind of energy? Why are these imaginings happening? What's the purpose, of it? What do I want to what end result am I trying to achieve by, like, either feeling this way or whatever? And as you kind of look within, and this is applicable for any type of thing, but like look at it and let those scenario play out. Let it play out fully without even resisting it. As in, it's like, how do I want to say this? Let it be. Experience it, and in that experience, let that energy fade out, and realize, like, that's not even what I want to happen. It's like, instead of sitting there and immediately putting resistance, putting it in check, it's like, no, I don't. I know God doesn't want me to do that. Boom, I don't want to make God mad. And so put a check on it. But that feeling and shit is still there. It's like, looking at it more as like, well, God brought that to the surface to address it right here and now. The problem and the solutions at the same time. And so it's like, all right, let's experience this. You're not alone. Jesus is with you, and also within you. And so it's like, part of the fear that you may feel, like feeling a certain way, is like feeling like, oh, this is sinful. And so I'm going to be, all of a sudden this happened. This naturally just came out in my consciousness. Now I feel like God's going to be angry and mad at me if I, for even having that, even though God gave me every emotion and thought and everything that's in myself, including this life experience and the circumstance. It's like, so the question is why. So let's explore it, with, feeling like it's safe to do so, feeling like it's a time to heal versus a time to repress these emotions and these feelings and this shit going on within, or, not addressing it, and then unconsciously then start lashing out on others, and, just perpetuating suffering and making shit, into a gigantic ordeal. Feeling it, and that's one of the things that, like, I am still exploring, is like even just dealing with emotions, because so much of my old kind of way of thinking about things, and it's almost like the best state that the old mind can kind of connect with, is, for one, those vengeance thoughts on others, making others pay and suffer, and that you're superior and you're the judge and jury and executioner and everything else. There's like a kind of like a, it doesn't, I wouldn't say it feels good, like, flawlessly playing like a some music, or like landing a fucking awesome trick on a skateboard, or or landing a big job. It's like, those are things that feel good. You're having a good time with, somebody in your family, it's like that. But there's a reason why we're doing it. It's like, okay, I felt like I've been wronged by something that happened earlier today, and so for hours I'm going to sit there and just fucking let it fester. So why? Because there's like some sort of I wouldn't say feel good, but it doesn't feel terrible. It's like you don't feel the suffering. It's like you are suffering because you're attacking yourself and others. But the thing of it is, it's like, it's just like this weird disconnect, and it's the same way with like the old mind's belief in just numbness, becoming numb. That's its version of peace, is just being numb, being cold, being unaffected by anything, good or bad. It's just completely just robot. It's like I have no emotions, no feelings towards it. It's like I've been so fucking whatevers that I just want to feel nothing. Like, I felt that way when I was like drinking a lot. It's just like, I just want to feel nothing. I don't want to feel pain. I don't want to feel good even. I just want to feel blank, because on some level that's better than the suffering. Where it's just like, kind of moving forward in like a healing kind of mindset, healing the consciousness, is these past traumatic things, these past traumas and everything else, to purge this fear from your consciousness, because that's not who you are. It's not your identity. Your identity is one that's connected with God, and God created you for a purpose and for a reason. And as far as God, it's like God's already pleased with you. It's like, it's about realizing these states now. It's like, so much of the old mind is like, oh, I got to do all of this stuff. It's like, I gotta be a certain way. I gotta be Mr. Perfect to even get any type of whatever's. But it's like, God's pleased with you now. It's like, God's already happy with you. It's like, yeah, you might like spin out and go like prodigal. It's like, it's like, go do all this crazy shit. But then like, look at that what do they call it? Not metaphor, but parable, I guess. It's kind of like a metaphor, but like, it's like, oh, you come back, and where you think God's going to like punish you, make you suffer, and like throw you away. It's like, no, it's like, let's have a party. You're back. Things are good. Give me a hug. Stop running off like that. But like, embracing these kind of emotions and everything else, it's like, it's not healing to pretend that it's not there. It's not healing to avoid it. It's not healing to think there's something shameful and wrong with you because you feel something bubbling in the surface of your consciousness. But look at that as like, well, God's bringing this out to be addressed in this moment now so you can heal, level up in your states of being, and not drift back into it again. It's like, let's pluck this weed out of your consciousness so that your garden can flourish more and more so each day. And so I just wanted to bring that to you guys' attention, to your awareness, and something to put into practice, because it's one thing to hear hear these things. Faith comes by hearing, so I guess there is some benefit to that, but like there's even more when you put it to practice in your own life, because it's only ever now, and you're already doing this unconsciously, in a lot of ways, and suffering and having fucking what you don't desire playing out, which is fear, whereas what you do desire is love, and feeling that love, experiencing it, and everything else. And so it's really important to put it to practice, to start letting God heal your mind, and not to look at things as being random, a coincidence. Try to, even if it's a fucked up situation, kind of look at it as like, okay, this just happened. I can spin out in my mind about it, or I can try to see what's going on with this. How can I look at this differently with new eyes? And even if it's a bridge of incidents that takes a couple days to resolve, you just keep that mindset of like, everything is a bridge of incidents to bring you to a better place. It's all things are working together for your good. Even though at the surface level, at times in the present moment, there will be fucked up things, because a lot of that's the past cycling back. It's like your past identity, reality is like a mirror, and so it's like, if there's fucked up shit going on, instead of just sitting there blaming everything else but yourself, start to ask, what role did I play in this, if any? If it's hard for you to maybe take responsibility for your life, which is hard for a lot of people to take responsibility for their life, including the fucked up parts of your life, it's much easier to blame others and blame everything else, besides your own thoughts and your own beliefs. But the more that you practice this, the more that you see what an impact, your own, especially the limiting beliefs and assumptions and just your mindset about things, because we're all thinking different things. I'm almost like getting more into kind of a space, like everybody's mindsets are unique, just like every other being is unique. But like with that uniqueness, when I look out to creation, I want to see more of like love being reflected back. It's like it's like, oh yeah, there was a time where it's just like, oh, it's fear and vengeance and wanting to control everything, but letting go of that control is very important to peace of mind, and realizing that if God's in control of that, that's God's problem. That this isn't really even a problem, because it's playing out perfectly according to God's will, which you start to understand more and more so what that is through experience, by kind of practicing, being still, being present. Now's the time. It's like you're either feeling good or you're not. And so it's like, if you're not, then what's the block? What's the resistance? Was it a situation? Was it a circumstance? Was it a lot of ways just not accepting the present moment, which is not accepting yourself, even if that was your past self? It's like, which is difficult for the old mind to move past the shit that's already been manifested. It's like, yeah, it's already been manifested, but you can start to move states and see a different reflection, and it's hard for the old mind to embrace that, that you can just let the shit go and carry on in the vision of, I want a loving relationship with this person. I want a fulfilling, loving expression of, like, creating more of the common good for culture and for others. That's what most of, but everybody's in different states and everybody's at different levels and everybody's just expressing their own things, but not to sit there and look at yourself as being some broken toy, you know yeah, and realize that that God's pleased with you right now. It's like feel that energy of that. That you don't have to keep striving and struggling, and you got to do this milestone up here before God actually gives a shit about what you're doing. It's just like God's within you and happy with you. It's just like start to connect with that more and more so now. It's really important, and so with that being said, I think I'm gonna bounce. So thanks everybody for liking, sharing, subscribing, all the social networking things. I appreciate your spiritual support and your financial support. Thank you for that. Until the next now, God bless.